Hello, family, and happy Saturday. So, Professor Jonathan Haidt publicly recognized Harry and Meghan as pillars in the international movement for online child safety. Think about how massive that is for a second. Jonathan Haidt is not a celebrity gossip commentator. He's one of the leading voices in the global conversation about the psychological impact of smartphones and social media on young people. His work has shaped discussions among educators, policymakers, parents, psychologists, and governments around the world. And when someone like that publicly praises Harry and Meghan's advocacy, it tells you something significant is happening beneath the surface of all the tabloid chaos. Because serious people do not hand out serious praise casually, especially on issues this important. One of the reasons this moment resonated so deeply is because it felt grounded in sincerity rather than publicity. Jonathan Haidt specifically referenced Meghan's speech in Geneva and the Lost Screen Memorial event connected to online child safety efforts. And honestly, the Lost Screen Memorial is one of the most emotionally impactful advocacy projects Harry and Meghan have ever participated in. It forces people to confront something uncomfortable. The internet is not just entertainment anymore. It shapes identity. It shapes emotional well-being. It shapes childhood itself. For many young people, the online world is inseparable from real life. The pressure never stops. The comparisons never stop. The bullying never fully disappears because phones follow children everywhere. Previous generations could at least escape school drama by going home. Now the drama lives in their pockets 24 hours a day, and adults are still scrambling to understand the consequences. That's why conversations around online safety have become so urgent globally. Parents are worried. Teachers are worried. Mental health professionals are worried. Researchers are sounding alarms about anxiety, depression, loneliness, addiction-like behavior, and harmful algorithmic systems targeting young users. So when Harry and Meghan help spotlight these issues, they are stepping into one of the most important social conversations of this era. Not performatively, not superficially, but emotionally. That emotional dimension matters because statistics alone rarely move people. Stories move people. Human connection moves people. And the Lost Screen Memorial brought humanity directly into the center of the conversation. What made Meghan's Geneva appearance stand out was how calm and heartfelt it felt. There was no theatrical performance, no exaggerated self-importance, no "look at me saving the world" energy. Instead, Meghan spoke with empathy and clarity. She spoke as a mother, as a public figure who understands digital scrutiny, as someone genuinely concerned about the online environment children are growing up in. And honestly, one thing Meghan has always done well is speak emotionally without sounding robotic. That sounds simple, but it's actually rare. A lot of public speeches today feel like they were assembled by 12 consultants in a conference room after a 4-hour PowerPoint presentation titled Youth Engagement Strategy. Everyone claps politely while secretly checking lunch options. But Meghan's approach tends to feel conversational and human. That's part of why supporters connect with her. She communicates emotionally rather than institutionally. And in Geneva, that approach worked beautifully because the topic itself is deeply emotional. How do we protect children online? How do we prevent technology from overwhelming childhood development? How do we encourage healthier digital spaces without isolating young people from modern life? These are enormous questions with no easy answers. But the first step toward solving a problem is acknowledging it honestly. That's what this event represented: acknowledgement, awareness, urgency. Now let's really talk about why Jonathan Haidt's words carry so much weight. Because this was not casual celebrity praise. This was recognition from someone whose professional life is deeply connected to understanding youth well-being and the psychological effects of digital culture. Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, has become one of the defining works in the current debate surrounding smartphones, social media, and childhood mental health. His ideas are influencing schools, policymakers, and parents across multiple countries. So when he publicly calls Harry and Meghan pillars of this movement, it reflects genuine respect for their involvement. And notice something important here. He did not describe them as occasional supporters. He described them as pillars. That word suggests consistency, commitment, reliability. It suggests they are viewed as meaningful contributors rather than temporary celebrity participants. And honestly, that recognition probably frustrates some people because it completely disrupts the lazy narrative that Harry and Meghan do nothing. Clearly, they do, and serious experts are noticing. That doesn't mean everyone has to become a Sussex fan overnight. Human beings are allowed to have different opinions. A revolutionary concept online, I know. But fairness matters. Accuracy matters. And the reality is that Harry and Meghan have spent years engaging with mental health initiatives, community projects, veterans programs, women's empowerment work, and now increasingly online child safety advocacy. That is simply factual. What makes this issue particularly powerful is that it cuts across political and cultural lines. Parents everywhere are worried about children online. This is not a left versus right issue, not a monarchy versus republic issue, not an American versus British issue. It's universal. Everywhere you look, families are trying to navigate impossible questions. How much screen time is healthy? What are social media algorithms doing to self-esteem? How do parents protect children from online bullying? How do platforms moderate harmful content? How do we balance freedom with safety? And the truth is, technology evolved faster than society's ability to process its impact. Human beings invented infinite digital connectivity before fully understanding human psychological vulnerability. Tiny oversight there. Children became the test subjects. Now society is trying to catch up. That's why advocacy from public figures matters, because visibility creates momentum. Harry and Meghan's involvement helps push these conversations into mainstream awareness, and the emotional storytelling attached to projects like the Lost Screen Memorial helps people feel the human stakes involved, not abstract policy, real families. That emotional bridge is important. One thing that becomes clearer every year is that Harry and Meghan are building a very different kind of public life than many people initially expected. When they left royal duties, critics predicted irrelevance. They said nobody would care. They said the couple would disappear. They said they had no identity outside the institution. But instead, Harry and Meghan gradually carved out a life centered around advocacy, media, philanthropy, and social impact conversations. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, not without controversy, but intentionally. And honestly, one reason their work resonates internationally is because it often feels rooted in emotional experience rather than ceremonial performance. Harry speaks openly about trauma, grief, mental health, and media intrusion. Meghan often focuses on empathy, women, community support, and family well-being. Together, their public identity increasingly revolves around emotional honesty and social advocacy. That approach connects strongly with younger generations, who tend to value authenticity over rigid institutional formality. And Geneva reflected that evolution perfectly. This was not about royal symbolism, it was about human impact. There's also an irony here that's impossible to ignore. The very online culture that fueled years of hostility toward Harry and Meghan is now becoming the subject of serious global concern. Think about that. For years, digital hate ecosystems targeted Meghan relentlessly. Conspiracy theories, racial abuse, harassment campaigns, obsessive commentary, daily outrage cycles. And now, major researchers and mental health advocates are publicly discussing how toxic online environments damage people psychologically. That contrast is striking because it forces society to confront uncomfortable questions about what online culture has become. At what point does criticism become dehumanization? At what point does engagement culture reward cruelty? At what point do algorithms amplify hostility because outrage is profitable? These are serious ethical questions, and Harry and Meghan have lived inside that reality in an unusually visible way, which probably explains why online safety advocacy feels so personal for them. They understand digital toxicity firsthand. Not theoretically, experientially. And perhaps that experience gives their advocacy emotional depth. I think many Sussex supporters felt genuinely emotional seeing Jonathan Haidt publicly praise Harry and Meghan because it represented validation after years of negativity. Not validation in a petty "we won" sense, but validation that meaningful work is being recognized beyond the gossip machine. Supporters have watched Harry and Meghan endure years of ridicule while continuing to advocate for causes they care about. And moments like Geneva remind people that beneath all the noise, real progress is still happening. That matters emotionally, especially because online culture often rewards cynicism over compassion. People mock sincerity constantly now. Everything becomes ironic. Everything becomes performative. But there is still something deeply powerful about people using influence to help vulnerable communities. That should not feel embarrassing to say. Compassion is not weakness. Empathy is not naive. And seeing respected experts publicly align themselves with Harry and Meghan's advocacy reinforces the legitimacy of the work being done. There's also something undeniably inspiring about Meghan continuing to stand in international spaces and speak confidently after everything she has faced publicly. Because, honestly, the level of scrutiny directed toward her would have crushed many people. Imagine waking up every morning knowing complete strangers are analyzing your facial expressions like Cold War intelligence agents decoding enemy transmissions. She smiled for 1.4 seconds, troubling implications for the Commonwealth. Absolute madness. And yet, Meghan continues moving forward with grace and composure. That resilience stands out. Not because she pretends criticism doesn't exist, not because she acts invulnerable, but because she refuses to become hardened by it. She still speaks warmly, still centers empathy, still engages with issues involving children and families. That emotional openness is probably one reason people continue connecting with her despite years of negative coverage. People recognize humanity when they see it. Another important aspect of this Geneva appearance is that it highlights how global the conversation around online child safety has become. This is not a niche issue anymore. Countries around the world are debating smartphone restrictions for schools, parents are delaying social media access for children, researchers are studying long-term developmental effects, tech companies are facing increasing pressure. This issue is only growing, which means Harry and Meghan's advocacy in this space could become one of the defining parts of their long-term public legacy. And honestly, it feels like meaningful territory for them, because the issue intersects with so many themes already central to their work: mental health, community well-being, family support, responsible media culture, human dignity. Those themes connect naturally. And when experts like Jonathan Haidt publicly acknowledge their role in the movement, it strengthens the perception that Harry and Meghan are contributing to serious conversations with lasting social relevance. At the end of the day, this week was bigger than celebrity, bigger than royal discourse, bigger than internet drama, bigger than tabloid headlines. It was about children, about families trying to navigate a rapidly changing digital world, about researchers, advocates, and public figures coming together to ask how society can create healthier online spaces for future generations. And within that conversation, Jonathan Haidt publicly recognized Harry and Meghan as important voices helping move the issue forward. That matters, because meaningful recognition from respected experts cannot be manufactured through PR spin alone. It reflects credibility, consistency, engagement, and perhaps most importantly, it reflects purpose. For all the noise surrounding Harry and Meghan over the years, moments like Geneva reveal something much quieter and much more substantial underneath it all. A desire to contribute, a desire to advocate, a desire to use visibility for something beyond spectacle. And honestly, in an online world increasingly fueled by outrage, cynicism, and endless distraction, seeing compassion and humanity placed at the center of the conversation felt genuinely refreshing, not trendy, not performative, necessary. And maybe that's the most powerful thing about this entire moment. While some people remain obsessed with turning Harry and Meghan into permanent characters in a never-ending royal soap opera, the Sussexes themselves seem increasingly focused on something far more important: the kind of world children are inheriting. That's a conversation worth having. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.